I don't want no oil a-spoiling my shoreline. I like fish much better than crud. I like birds and things a-creeping and crawling. Won't trade no more oil for blood. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that black demon oil's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. I don't want them nukes run by them kooks who think radioactivity is fun. No more three-headed frogs or kids with leukemia. Nuclear power ain't fit for a dog. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that nuclear power's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. No nukes! Good morning, Toledo, and good afternoon, Columbus, and hello to those of you listening on the internet, wherever and whenever you are. My name is Joe DeMar, and I'm here with my co-host,
Rebecca Wood.
Yes, and together, Rebecca and I are bringing you an hour of radio called For a Green Future. For a Green Future is a program where we talk about the environment, we talk about ecology. We talk about it in terms of your wealth, your health, your happiness, and that of your family, your friends, your pets, and all the living creatures here on this planet. And, we're still in COVID lockdown or COVID isolation, so as I've been saying every week while we're on here, I've been, usually you go into the studio. I've told you about the huge palatial entrance in the front, but what I haven't said is around the back, there's this beautiful little porch with some hanging porch swings on it. And sometimes, like after the show or maybe before the show, I like to go and sit in the porch swing and look out over the gardens and just sort of get ready, and you get that feeling you're involved in something amazing, something special. So can't do that now that we're operating out of our houses. So what I'm doing is dressing up, and so now I'm in the series of ties, and this week's tie is a Dalek tie. I don't know if any of you are followers of Doctor Who, but if you are, you immediately know what a Dalek is, and if you don't, well, check it out. It's a pretty good series. I really like it. But so all dressed up and ready to go. Are you ready, Rebecca?
Absolutely. And I just have to say that if the doctor was here, he would fix up all our problems in a half an hour.
Yes, the good doctor would. Well, it would an hour. It would take an hour.
An hour, right? Okay, an hour. Yeah.
But he would fix them. Yes. What is that beeping at your end, Rebecca? Some sort of.
Okay, I think,
noise?
it is. Something is, I don't know what I didn't turn off. Hold on, let me see. Oh, something's on vibrate. That's bad.
Just unplug everything. Then that way we'll get through this. Okay, so this week we have a good show lined up for you, a very interesting show. We're going to depart a little bit from our usual sort of guest. We do have a special guest. Her name is Rachel, and she'll be joining us at about quarter after. But Rachel is what I like to call an quote-unquote ordinary hero. Rachel is not our typical environmental activist, fighting the system and trying to push through. She's somebody who works a quote-unquote normal job, helping people every day. And she has a very interesting story that I think it's important for us to listen to in these times. This week, I was out mowing my lawn. That was the thing I was doing there yesterday. I have a really big lawn. It takes about 2 hours for me to mow it, so I break it up into half-hour chunks. But our lawn is kind of unique in the neighborhood because the birds and the animals really love our lawn more than anybody else's, and I think it's because we have not used any sort of chemical at all on our lawn in the 10 years or so that we've been living at this place. And the soil is very clean, and there's lots of different plants. I can't stand the monoculture grass. I can't stand just one kind of grass throughout a whole lawn, no variations in color or size. And we have all kinds of plants in our lawn. We've got, I think I counted over 30 species of plants one time. And actually this year I'm also letting the milkweed grow up. So so you see our lawn has this nice, it is mowed, it looks pretty nice, and it's got tall milkweed. And also along the edges, I let the plants grow tall. I let some tall plants grow along the fence line and alongside the garage and stuff, because those tall plants are what the lightning bugs need. In order to have, if you want fireflies in your yard in the summer, and I actually have seen a firefly already this year, but if you want them there, you've got to leave some of that tall grass somewhere in your yard, because they need that to reproduce when they are attracting their mates and stuff. Some of them like to hang out on the tall plants or in the grass. So it's just sad that for a lot of people, mowing their lawn is literally their only interaction with nature. So if you've got a lawn to mow, don't use any chemicals on it. We're coming up to that time of the year where people want to start spraying things and laying down carpets of pesticides and herbicides. And just don't do it, all right? The birds will thank you. The bats will thank you, and I'll thank you, because it's just not something that's good for the environment. Now, there's something...
I hate that, because I have to... People poison their yards, and they have those little signs that saying small animals shouldn't be on them. And my assistant co-host can't go in every other yard, and he doesn't understand why I'm suddenly being mean and not letting him smell anything and making him jog down the sidewalk to the next yard.
You mean your four-legged co-host?
Yeah, that one. Yeah. We're not expecting a contribution from him today, but you never know.
Okay. Well, yeah, and when I was walking our dog, Molly, you'd never notice those signs until you were halfway through the yard. If you know
exactly, yeah.
It's like, she'd be sniffing along, doing her doggy business, and all of a sudden I'd see a sign, and I'd be like, "Oh no, Molly, get out of there!" But
yep.
Yeah, so that's an industry which I think needs to go away. The chemical-based lawn care industry. But there's lots, just because you get rid of that doesn't mean you get rid of lawn care. I mean, you're still going to have lawn care. One of our neighbors has a completely natural lawn. That is, she covered the whole thing with wildflowers and perennials, and she hardly has to do any maintenance on it at all. But, there's still work to be done. You can still hire people to go in and weed those kinds of lawns, and of course you have to make them. It's a lot of work landscaping them, getting them planted in the first place. But she's got this really cool lawn that changes literally every week all summer long, and it has like wild blueberry bushes in it, and it's just really cool. So there's a lot of alternatives to mowing your lawn. I just want to get that out there in this nice spring weather. I think you're going to have to go out and mow your lawn today if you haven't yet. But just when you're mowing, think about that. Think about what little parts can I leave. I also don't mow down my inkweed, my pokeberry. You know what plant that is, Rebecca?
I do not.
That's a big plant. They can grow to be like 6 foot tall, and they've got these purple stems and these really big green leaves. And then in the fall, they have these berries, these purple berries that hang there. And one thing about them, it's called inkberry for a reason. You can literally use the berries for ink. You don't have to go buy ink. You can just get some of these ink berries, squeeze them through some cheesecloth. You've got this really beautiful purple ink. So that's what I'm going to do this fall, is I'm going to use my inkberry ink, and I'm going to write letters.
For your numerous fountain pens, I'm sure.
Well, I've only got one, but that's all you need.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. So, all right. So, Rebecca, I think, this is a show about ecology and the environment, but sometimes societal things have to creep in. Sometimes we have to, because we are also sort of a news program. And there's some really big news going on right now that, Rebecca, I guess you were at least tangentially a part of in the city of Toledo. Could you tell us a little bit about what you saw yesterday in the city of Toledo?
Okay, well, I didn't see that much. I was at the official part of the Black Lives Matter Police Accountability March yesterday. So everything I saw was nice and peaceful, and everything else that I have was secondhand from Facebook friends who are all people that I know. I mean, I know these people in real life. So apparently the bad part of the trouble started because after the official march had broken up, 3 white people jumped on a police car and were smashing windows and jumping up and down on it, which, it's been pointed out that white allies need to work more on taking our cue from the black organizers of the march and not putting people at risk. Our role needs to be more putting our bodies between danger and our black allies. And that's true. However, I do not think that the police had to respond to that by failing to give any warning to disperse and just starting to shoot people with what were in fact wooden bullets. They were not rubber bullets. They call them that so they sound all nice and harmless, but they were not. One friend of mine was kneeling to get in her medical kit with her facing away from the police, got shot in the back of the head with a wooden bullet, needed 10 stitches covered in blood. And I've heard numerous reports of people being injured by wooden bullets, or in one case a tear gas canister, which hurt a woman's leg who had just come to collect her 3 children, who had just sort of been on the edges of the march. Another friend of mine had been already shot multiple times by wooden bullets, and somebody shot them the police tried to shoot them in the face from 10 feet away with a paintball gun, but they put up their hand and blocked it, so they didn't actually get their face. But this was the cops. They were 10 feet away. They were aiming for the face. Yeah. I feel the police are accountable for that, even if some people did some things which were showboating a little. And I feel like they are morally responsible for their behavior. Many people were shot in the back while running away with wooden bullets and are going to require medical attention. Oh, and the police reported to the media that, only 2 protesters were hurt by bottles thrown by other protesters. And then when they were questioned more closely about that, they said, we didn't count the people who might have been hurt by the bullets.
Uh-huh. Yeah, well, that was our theme in last week's show, was the numbers. Can you trust the numbers? And
yeah, in this case, no, you really can't.
Yeah,
this can't trust nothing.
This seed's being repeated all over Ohio. I guess I've seen reports on Facebook that similar things are happening in Columbus and Akron, and full disclosure, I'm the political director of the Ohio Green Party. Although on this show I don't speak for the Green Party, no one does. We all just speak for ourselves. As would you if you call in at 866-240-1065. That's 866-240-1065. And nonviolence is one of the Green Party's 10 key values. And so what we see here is an example that violence quickly escalates, and innocent people invariably get sucked into violent situations. And I just want to say, these protests are the natural outgrowth of a long time of frustration and denial of people's rights and benefits through the laws and through the courts. And so the fact that it's happening is understandable, but the violence is not productive. I know some people argue that nothing happens until there's violence. I disagree with that. I think that lots of things have happened without violence, and we can look to the environmental community. Yeah,
either way, if they stop murdering people, that would be a way to stop the violence.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
That would work.
That has to happen. And the use, and I agree that the police were completely out of line using wooden bullets, and some of the pictures and videos I've seen on Facebook are horrific, and the Toledo Police Department frankly should be ashamed of themselves, I think. But
yeah.
But as I said, it's the whole confrontation is a natural response to a long time of frustration by a lot of people. And,
they're wonderful.
So I'm
Martin Luther King, who keeps getting thrown in protesters' faces as why, somebody did violence, so we can't ever do any protesting ever again. He one of his great quotes was, "Rioting is the language of the unheard." And you know what's the remedy for that? You need to listen.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be going to a little protest in Bowling Green at 5:00 this afternoon, but it's, I pray it's going to be nonviolent. I'm going to be nonviolent no matter what happens. At least that's my plan. But I thought we should mention this since it's breaking news and that we are a news program, even though it doesn't touch on our topic of environment. Now, one thing that does touch on the topic of environment and ecology that we have been talking about quite a bit on the show is the COVID-19 pandemic. And, of course, we've been following this way back. We actually were following it before it got to the United States, before it became a big national story, because it looks like this virus originated, we know it originated in China, and it looks like it was originally a bat virus that mutated while it was infecting a third animal, the pangolin probably, and it went from the bat to the pangolin to humans. And so, this whole story is an example of ecology in action. This is the entrance of a new disease into a new population, and it's following the rules that diseases follow in ecology when they enter new populations with the exponential growth and so forth. But it's easy to lose sight when you're looking at numbers and you're looking at graphs and talking big principles like exponential growth. It's easy to lose sight of the individual, the human aspect to this, the individual stories of people who catch COVID. And, the New York Times had their famous now front page where they had 10,000 of the 100,000 people that have died of COVID just listed their names on their paper. But we have COVID victims and COVID survivors here in Lucas County and Wood County and all over Ohio. And so I have invited on the show today Rachel. Rachel, are you there?
Hi.
Hi. Welcome to For a Green Future.
Thank you.
Rachel, I don't want you to get in trouble with your employer and so forth, so we're only going to be using your last name, and I don't want you to say where you work or anything. But you are, in fact, a COVID survivor. You had the COVID virus and got over it.
Yes, I did.
Could I just ask, what were your first symptoms? I mean, when did you first notice something was wrong?
With my chest hurting, like 2 weeks before I started knowing my chest was hurting, I wasn't feeling too good, and then had a fever, but my first symptom was definitely my chest hurting.
Okay, so your chest starts hurting, and then, so how quickly did it progress?
Probably in about a week, because I was at work, and, my chest was hurting, but before that, it was horrible.
So, okay, so your chest started hurting, no fever at the beginning, right? The fever showed up later.
Nope. So, yeah, it was late, in about a week.
Yeah, so following the rules were given at the time, that you check people for fever and so forth, you would have passed those screening things at that time, but in fact you already had the disease and it was progressing. How bad did it get?
It was pretty bad. One day, I couldn't even get up out of bed. It was horrible. I couldn't smell or taste. Well, I still can't smell or taste. And, it was just so bad, like, so hot and cold, like, it was just, it's kind of like a cold, but 100 times worse, like the flu.
Were you ever in fear for your life? Were you ever afraid that you weren't going to make it?
couple times, yes. Because I actually had, went to the hospital 2 times and, found out that I had a sinus infection and a respiratory infection, on top of that, So, I mean, yeah, at times I would, because I've never ever felt that sick before ever in my life.
And you're a pretty young person, right? How old are you, may I ask?
20.
20. So you're in this group of, a lot of people your age feel like, oh, if I get it, it's not going to hurt me because I'm young. But being young is no guarantee it's not going to be a serious thing.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. What was recovery like? How long did it take you to recover? And do you think you're like 100% recovered?
I could say it actually probably took close to a month. I'm not 100% recovered. I still can't smell or taste, but that's the only thing. Everything else, I'm fine. But yeah, it's been a month and like 4 days since I could be able to smell and taste.
And you're back to work now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what do you say to people that are going around without masks and claiming, oh, COVID's no big deal? What would you say to people?
In my opinion, I don't think that masks work because, I work at a facility and, I had an N95 mask on and another mask on. And, I wash my hands so many times, throughout the day where my hands just would get so dry and I still end up getting it, so, but you can get it anywhere. But in my opinion, I don't think masks work, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. But what about the disease itself? What about people who are saying COVID's nothing to worry about?
COVID is definitely something to worry about because it definitely has, affected a lot of, elderly people, I've noticed, because they're not as strong as they used to be, But it is definitely something to worry about. I'm not saying it's not, but it's definitely something that you should, think about and, keep on washing your hands. And I don't think it's ever going to go away. It's like the flu now, so. But it's definitely something to worry about, but I don't think that, masks work. I think you should just, stay away from, people who you think is sick or whatnot. And
yeah, well, the health professionals, are telling us that what masks can do is slow the spread between people, especially if both people are wearing masks. But if you're in a healthcare situation, you're going to be exposed. You're going to get a lot more exposures than those of us who aren't, and so every time you're exposed, there's that chance. So the more times you roll the dice, the more likely it is you're going to eventually get it. So I think the masks are important because it helps. Basically, it helps your odds. You're sort of cheating a little bit with it.
Mm-hmm. That's, but, when I still go out in grocery stores, I do wear a mask and stuff like that, but, what I went through, working, at a facility and, doing everything I could, just to stay healthy. I just, I couldn't, but, I guess it was just something that happened to me, I guess.
So I guess what you're saying is that masks are no guarantee that you can wear a mask and still get it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. But I think hand washing is definitely the top, because everybody's touching stuff and, people, touch their hand, up, on their face and stuff like that. And so the hand washing is definitely the number one, I think.
I'd like to ask, you say you work at a care facility. We're not going to get specific here, but how did the disease spread through the care facility? Have you lost any people at that care facility?
Well, at our facility, we actually have agency people, so, they go to different facilities. So I just think that, once an aide goes to another facility, they can have it there and bring it to our facility. So that's definitely how it spread, and we've lost actually a lot of people. Mm-hmm. So it's very sad.
Yeah, that's the story at care facilities all over the country. So I'm very sorry to hear it because I imagine you probably had you obviously knew some of the people you've lost firsthand.
Definitely.
That must be hard. I'm sorry. So basically, is there any kind of advice you'd give people right now, because we're all getting such conflicting information about the disease and what to do and what not to do, and you're someone who's been through it. What sort of general advice would you give to people?
Just try to stay healthy, and keep on washing your hands, and wear that mask if you need to, or whatnot, and that's my advice. Just try to stay healthy, and if you're sick, don't go around people that can get sick. Yeah, just stay healthy.
Yeah, so if you're sick, definitely don't try to go to work. Don't go out. Stay home and get
Don't go out, yes. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Rachel. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you sharing your story with us. So
thanks.
Yeah. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Bye. All right. Well, that was Rachel. So, all these environmental stories, all this, like when we talk about, for example, when we had Lois Gibbs on, and she was talking about the chemical contamination at Love Canal, and when we talk about, let's say, Flint, Michigan, and the lead poisoning, I mean, when you read the stories and you just read so many people are affected, this is what happened to them, you don't really get the idea that this is something that's affecting individuals. And now with a disease like COVID, most of us haven't had the disease, and I would still say that most of us don't personally know somebody who got it, or at most you might know one or two people, but it's real. It's hurting people. It's not a conspiracy theory.
I know some people who've had it, and it was not a good time, according to them.
Yeah.
I know some people who've lost relatives to it. They're at this point, I know Facebook friends who I don't know in real life who have lost relatives, and I know Facebook friends that I do know in real life who have had it personally.
Now, this is also ties back in with these protests that are going on. I mean, just like the right-wing protests people were gathering at the state houses with guns and stuff, and they spread COVID amongst themselves. Lots of data has shown that the people who went to those protests, there was COVID spreading happening when they didn't social distance and when they didn't wear masks. And so, we have to keep that in mind at this time too, that COVID doesn't care what kind of protester you are. Viruses don't care which side of the political spectrum you come from. They affect all of us equally. So, when I go today at 5, I'm going to wear my mask. I'm going to keep social distance. It's just something to remember that we are all literally part of the same population. And if you want proof of that, just look at COVID. Just look at the diseases that affect us. So,
honestly, Joe, left-wingers have a terrible, terrible habit at rallies of all bunching up together to make so that from the street they look smaller. They're standing behind each other. You can't see 3/4 of the signs. It's like, okay, if you spread out a little, then your group looks bigger. You can cover more of the sidewalk front.
I think you're right about that. So maybe at the next
I thought so for years.
Maybe Rebecca, at the next kind of these protests that you go to, you should bring a whistle, and
there you go.
Then get people's attention, and then line them up, space them out,
Or just hoop skirts. Hoop skirt. Everyone should wear hoop skirts. Everyone of all genders.
Yep, hoop skirts. Okay.
That would do it.
Or just the frame. You don't actually.
There we are. Yeah.
Fabric.
Right.
Just that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, so we are racing along. The show is already halfway done, but it's not too late for you to join us at 866-240-1065, 866-240-1065. This is the best show in Ohio, but it gets better every time you call. And one of the things that makes this such a great show are our sponsors. And our sponsor for this hour is the Wood County Park District. The Wood County Park District is the Natural Resources Conservation Agency. They protect natural spaces, maintain quality green spaces, provide engaging programming, and they teach people to love and respect nature. They restore wildlife habitats and lead outdoor adventures. Wood County Parks protect natural spaces in Wood County for all to enjoy 8 a.m. to 30 minutes past sunset every single day of the year. And there's several ways you can see what's going on at the parks. One is go to their website, which is wcparks.org. And another is you can download their app, their nifty app, which is you go to the App Store and search for WC Parks. You can call them at 419-353-1897. That's 419-353-1897. And, of course, they're available on Facebook, so you can follow their Facebook page. Just search for Wood County Parks. Our other sponsors are our patrons. We have a very loyal group of patrons that are giving a little donation every month here on For a Green Future. They just went to patreon.com and they searched for For a Green Future and they found our page. It's got all kinds of nifty levels that you can support the show at, and a small monthly deduction will be taken out of your checking account every month, and it really, really helps keep us going because we depend on our advertisers and our patrons to bring the show to you. And of course, advertising, it's been a little difficult with the COVID, and so our patrons have been that much more important. So if you could become one of them, Rebecca and I would appreciate it. Wouldn't we, Rebecca?
We would. We absolutely would.
Well, now we've come to the part of the show where we talk about eco news. Let's start off with some sad eco news, not surprising eco news, but the Center for Biological Diversity is reporting that the Trump administration is at it again. You know, they hate all animals. And so they are, so what they've done,
most plants also.
Yeah, most plants. Yeah, I guess there's probably a couple plants they're okay with, but
right.
But most of them, they actively dislike, and the rest they're still leery about, But they have a new plan. Trump has a new plan, and that is to turn all our nation's wildlife refuges into basically hunting parks. So kind of missing the. Yeah, missing the refuge part of refuge. But anyway, he's got a new plan that they're going to allow, if it passes, and it's being challenged, thank goodness, but if it passes, they're going to allow baiting of animals in national wildlife refuges. That is, for example, one thing that hunters like to do for bears, and they're looking at doing this in some of the wildlife refuges in Alaska, is they buy donuts because bears, much like policemen, and I wonder if this is how they got the nickname bears. Yeah. But like donuts, and so if you go to the store, you buy a dozen donuts, you lay them out there. Bears have amazing senses of smell. I don't know how far a bear can smell a donut, but my guess is it's probably about a mile because they could smell like berries and things from that far away. So bears, if you lay out a bunch of donuts, bears are going to come looking for them. And so what they want to do, and they had done this in the past, and the Obama administration put a stop to it in 2015. But what they want to do is be able to lay out a bunch of donuts, sit there in their pickup truck idling so that they can watch their satellite TV while they're waiting. And once the bear shows up, they stick the shotgun out the window and shoot the bear. And then just, that's it. That's their hunting experience, is sitting in a heated pickup truck diesel pickup truck with all the modern amenities, with a shotgun across your lap, watching a pile of donuts, waiting for a bear to show up.
So not a lot of personal risk or challenge there.
Not a whole bunch, no.
No, yeah. It's really barely a sport at that point, is it?
Not much in the way of sportsmanship, no. I suppose your butt could get kind of sore if you have to sit there long enough. if enough bears have been shot, that they've got to come from, many miles away.
Pressure sores.
But
you could get terrible pressure sores, yeah.
You could, yeah. That's a real risk. If you're that kind of a bear hunter, you got to be careful of those pressure sores. So that's a little bit of bad news there that Trump's trying to do that again. Essentially, like I say, missing the whole idea of refuge. And the idea of a wildlife refuge has a fundamental support in ecological science. And that idea is pretty simple, but it's been proven experimentally, and it's one of those pillars of ecological science. If you can create a protected population, that is, if you can create a population which doesn't have to worry about getting predated or, safe from disease, if you have this reservoir of a species, you don't have to worry about that species going extinct because, they're going to go to that area, they'll reproduce, and they'll send colonists out, and they'll continuously try to repopulate the area around this protected population. But as long as you've got a protected population, you don't have to worry about, let's say, grizzly bears going extinct. Well, the problem for that to work is that you have to have a protected population. It has to actually be protected, and that's the idea of a wildlife refuge, which Trump just doesn't get. So, but following that bad news, here's some good news. Down in Nevada, for the past 30 years, the Southern Nevada Water Authority has been trying to claim the water in Southern Nevada for Las Vegas, the underground aquifers, because there's a big old aquifer there. It feeds streams, it feeds oases, and it actually helps with some agriculture too. But the Southern Nevada Water Authority has for 31 years been trying to get at that water to ship it to Las Vegas, so it could be used for lawns and swimming pools and things like that. Well, after 31 years, they finally gave up. People have been fighting it in courts. There's been all kinds of organizing around it, grassroots democracy, and finally, the Southern Nevada Water Authority has given up. That pipeline will not be created, and it's good to cherish these victories when they happen, especially when people work so hard and so long to get them to happen. So that's some good news. Some more, okay news. We reported that back when we started this lockdown and back when all the world's economies were shut down, that the carbon dioxide level measured at Mauna Loa came down from its all-time high ever recorded of 419.6 roughly parts per million. It has stayed down. It is now still down around 417 parts per million. So it dropped a little bit because of all the lockdown, and now it's going to drop even more because seasonally this happens every year as the trees in the northern hemisphere, plants start growing and they suck the carbon dioxide out of the air. You can literally measure that happening down there in Hawaii. Again, demonstrating that whole everything is connected thing that we're constantly harping about here on For a Green Future. So that's good news because it was looking like, the rate of increase was increasing and it looked like it was going to be just sort of shoot through the roof. This pause did bring it down, and it's continuing to go down. But to put that in context, we have to look at, 417 parts per million. 10 years ago, we were at 393 parts per million. So we're still up amazingly from just a decade ago. So we have a long way to go, but this little pause proved that we can do it. And another piece of good news that sort of follows on that, and that is that the EU, the European Union, they have a COVID recovery plan, and they're going to be giving out 750 billion euros, which is about $850 billion U.S., over the next 7 years to help businesses recover from COVID. And what the good news here, the good eco news, is that they are making their recovery plan green. So they're not going to be giving recovery money to oil and gas They are going to be giving extra recovery money to public transportation and to solar and to wind projects. And so they're using this whole disaster as an opportunity to retool and remake their economy. And what they're finding is that the more they do that, the stronger their economy gets, because in the long run, doing the environmental thing, doing the green thing, also has huge economic benefits and social benefits. And, what's good for the planet literally is good for us and good for our economies. And so that's good news. So the EU has decided to use this disaster as a way to improve their society and their economy even more. So that's some good news. That's pretty much all I've got for Eco News. Rebecca, did you have something you wanted to say? Were you looking up something about dams in Michigan?
I was, yeah, because I have a bunch of relatives in Michigan. Odds are I probably have some cousins in the Midlands, although I don't know specifically. So yeah, I was looking that up, and of course it's bad that people had to leave their homes and whatnot, and we'll have to rebuild and clean up and things. But also,
well, let's just recap really quickly that there was
the floodwaters went through the Dow dioxin containment ponds, and also a Superfund on the site on the Tittabawassee River. So that was bad.
Mm-hmm. Right. These were the floods that happened last week because 2 dams failed in Michigan.
Yep.
Okay, go on.
Yeah. Also, a fairly large number of dams in Michigan. I did the math at 150 are high hazard, 148 are rated significant hazard by the Army Corps of Engineers, and about 1,800 are not regulated by the state or the national government because they're not considered that they'll do enough damage. Although, not sure how closely they looked at that.
Yeah, and that one thing about that Dow facility that got flooded,
mm-hmm.
most people don't know, they had an experimental nuclear reactor there.
Oh boy!
And so once again, a nuclear plant, had the waters risen a few more feet, then the nuke plant would have flooded. And in addition to the chemical contamination that was in those floodwaters, there would have been radiological contamination too. And
also, there was dioxin.
Yeah, dioxin.
Dioxin, isn't that the same stuff at Love Canal? If I'm remembering right, that's not good stuff, right?
Yes, that's one of the most dangerous chemicals ever produced by man. Yes, dioxin it's an incredible carcinogen, and even in tiny amounts, it's almost guaranteed to cause cancer. So, that's bad. But add some radioactive uranium or a little bit of plutonium in there, and you got quite a cocktail.
That would have made it extra special, yeah.
Yeah, so luckily the floodwaters didn't rise those last couple of feet, so that didn't happen. But it was one of these experimental small reactors, which is just like, hey, let's spread the radiation around as much as we can instead of having it concentrated in some big places. But yeah, so that's an important footnote to the flooding stories, definitely. All right, here we are at quarter till, and still plenty of time for you to call in at 866-240-1065. That's 866-240-1065. This is the best show in Ohio, and we get better every time you call. So Rebecca, maybe I'll go right to the letter from the future.
All right, yay. Think? Yeah, you definitely. Bring it on.
All right, yeah. Every week, as you know, I get a letter from my great-great-granddaughter, Marie I., who's living in the year 2300. And Marie this week says, Dear GGG, home again in Bowling Green, Ohio to rest and recover. Normally, I'm a very driven person. I never seem to be happy unless I'm doing something, working towards something. But the first thing I did when I got here was head for bed. I slept for 2 days straight. One of the worst things about radiation poisoning is the deep exhaustion it causes. The doctors say I'm recovering well, but I've always had this reserve of energy that let me put in that extra couple of hours in the lab or run that extra mile. Now, I go to tap that reserve, and there's nothing. This morning, I needed 15 minutes to convince myself to get up and get a drink of water. Michael is definitely out of danger physically. I've used the hologram program to sit by his bed every day. He's no longer struggling for every breath. The doctors say he'll probably come out of his coma this week. The question is, how much, if any, damage to his mental faculties? The hologram room here is the little 10 by 10 room you used as an office 300 years ago. Most of the other rooms in the house you would recognize from your time. In fact, your old musical instruments, the didgeridoo, the bass recorder, and the cedar flute, are still here on the mantel in the living room. The huge garage is actually a workshop space now. Since we don't own a car, we don't need one with public transportation. Great-great-grandma's dream of a self-sufficient home has been more than realized. The solar panels you had put on the roof were long ago replaced with panels that were much more efficient. The house now produces approximately 5 times as much energy as it uses. There are huge cylindrical glass fish tanks along the south side of the house. That's where we raise fish like largemouth bass for food. The gardens you and Great-Grandma started are still here. With raised bed plantings, we supply produce to about half the houses on the block in season. Oops, suddenly very tired. Going to nap. Love you, GGG. Marie I. So, little glimpse at the house of the future there in the year 2300. You know, that's only a tiny fraction of the changes that could be made that could just bring all of us into a green future, into a sustainable future. And social issues and environmental issues, like all issues, are intricately woven together. I mean, think about it for a little bit. If you have a household like the one that Marie I describes, where your house actually generates more power than you use, so you can actually get some economic benefit selling power back into the grid, selling power to other people, and you actually produce more food than you yourself can eat. You know, you've got a little yard, you've got some raised bed gardens going, you're growing, hundreds of zucchini, more than you could possibly eat, so you can supply them to your friends and neighbors. If you've got food, if you've got shelter, if you've got power, you're already wealthy. Even if you don't have a dollar to your name, if you've got, food and shelter and power and relationships with the people around you, now you've got this baseline of support. This is baseline that supports you physically and mentally and socially. You're already doing pretty good, even before you get $1. So I think that living a balanced life, living an environmentally sound life, living a green life, is ideally, just living a good life. Now, not all of us have houses with yards, and so not all of us can be in that situation in terms of having, a big compost pile and a big garden. But you can know somebody who does, and you can do things in your own apartment, like you can have a little planter box and grow your own tomatoes or your own basil. Do all those little things. I mean, one of the problems with the environmental movement, or one of the things that's always thrown back at us, is that, you're just doing this because you get some personal satisfaction out of doing it. It's like, oh, Joe, well, you can have your plug-in hybrid car. That's great. But I think most of us are doing this because what we want to do is build a society where everybody can have these things, where everybody can have carbon-free transportation, and everybody can have freshly grown produce that was grown, within a few blocks of their house. It's not that we want to just take these things for ourselves. It's that we want everybody to have them. And, I guess it's kind of like computers. We were an early adopter of computers. We went out and we bought computers when they first came out, and they were really expensive, but we scraped the money together. And, back in those early days, you actually had to write your own programs for everything, because they didn't think, nobody quite realize that software was going to be a thing. So what they would sell you is a computer, and you'd have like programming commands on the keyboard, and so you could write your own programs really fast. And so, like my wife and I, we each wrote our own word processing program, and we each approached it in a different way, but, we would write our program, and so then we would use the programs we wrote to write our papers for college and things. But we adopted early when it was expensive, when it was difficult, when it was inconvenient, but without those early adopters, without those people who did it in the beginning, the industry, the home computer industry, would not have taken off, and we would not now be to the point where everybody's got a computer or everybody's got a cell phone, which is as good or better than a computer. And so that's kind of where we are right now. We are creating the change, those of us who can afford to buy things like, electric cars or plug-in hybrid cars. We're trying not just to do it for our own benefit, we're trying to turn the industry, turn our economy in that direction so that eventually everybody will be able to get those sorts of things. And I have a personal example right now. We've bought solar panels, and they're going to be put up probably in the first or second week of June. They're sitting in our garage right now. But the inverter that came with it is a standard grid tie inverter, which just means every bit of power our solar panels make will go into the grid. Well, the company that made the inverter just came out with a brand new product. It's a combination inverter electric car charger. And so it's able to, if you're charging your electric car, this inverter is able to say, oh, hey, all the power needs to go into the car until it's charged, and then we'll start putting it into the grid. And so they literally just came out with this product about a week ago. And so now we are looking to somehow trade in the other inverter to get this new inverter, because this is the direction every house in America should be going. Literally every rooftop in America should be generating the power that charges all the cars sitting in the driveways. And this is just one of the examples of the kinds of things that can happen. And, you could tease me about my plug-in hybrid car.
Ha.
Okay, all right. I know I just gave you permission to do that, didn't I?
Yes.
But it really needs to be a part of the future. But of course, more importantly, like Marie I said in her letter, ideally, none of us would even need cars. Ideally, the public transportation would be so good we could get to wherever we wanted, whenever we wanted, just by hopping on a bus. So we all have to keep working towards it. And we will get there because, frankly, we don't have much choice. I mean, we're in a year where already before hurricane season, we've already had 2 big storms hit the Atlantic. And, hurricane season's coming up, and it looks like this might be a record hurricane season on top of everything else, the COVID and the race riots and the police brutality. So, interesting times we're living in, Rebecca, wouldn't you say?
Oh, heck yeah.
So we actually still have time for a single call if somebody wanted to call in at 866-240-1065. We covered a lot of ground in the show today. Wow, we went from COVID to race riots to Nevada to we've been all over on the show today. So I want to thank all of you for sticking with us. Rebecca and I really love this hour every week of being able to talk to you and bring a little bit of sanity into the world, because ultimately that's what science is. That's what ecological science especially is actually looking at the world, looking at the environment, and basing your decisions, basing your actions on reality as opposed to, what you would like to be true. I mean, there's a difference between thinking for yourself and thinking the way other people tell you people who think for themselves think, if that makes sense.
Yepers.
Because I'm hearing, I'll state some sort of scientific principle in, let's say, a Facebook post relating to some issue, and people will come back oh, you can't even think for yourself. And I'm like, yeah, I am thinking. This is why I know that this scientific principle applies to this situation.
Right.
But somehow people get this idea that thinking for themselves means following exactly what they hear from some particular source that most people disagree with, even if that source is completely wrong. Somehow that has become, or they're trying to redefine that as thinking for yourself. As following the crazy person is somehow thinking for yourself, whereas taking what you know about the universe, taking what you know about science and human beings and applying that, somehow that's no longer thinking for yourself. So,
oh, you know what they're saying now, Joe? Fear weakens your immune system and makes you get the COVID. So if you're just not afraid of anything, then nothing bad can happen to you. Just step right off the cliff's edge, and it's only fear which triggers the gravity.
Right. Or no, it probably is only fear that causes the pain at the bottom of the
Right, yeah.
So so if you were unafraid of falling off a cliff, oh my. Yeah, but that is the sign of a cult. Basically, once they've got you to the point where you deny reality because someone has told you something, now you're a member of a cult. So,
yep.
Luckily, we're not members of cults. At least I'm not. Are you a member of a cult, Rebecca?
Well, I am the founder of a cult that considers me to be the God Empress of North America, but so far it's just me. I'm hoping for more members soon.
Well, if you're going to be, in a cult, I guess the head is the best, definitely.
I think so.
The most lucrative spot in a cult is the head of a cult. So, all right. Well, 8:59. We've done it again, Rebecca. Another great hour of radio. Thanks for listening, folks. And this is Joe DeMar.
And Rebecca Wood.
And
Rebecca Wood.
Together we are signing off.
Okay. Bye-bye.
I don't want them nukes run by them kooks who think radioactivity is fun. No more three-headed frogs or kids with leukemia. Nuclear power ain't fit for a dog. The sun